Kipp, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm digging the shirt.
Representing Sorinex today. I just got back from their Sorinex WinterStrong event, which they do every year. It was awesome. We did all kinds of stuff, from shooting our bows to I forged my first knife, which I was going to show you, but it's somewhere else, to the connections that we made. Had some competitions, had some great food, ate some venison, had some bear. It was amazing. Such a good event.
That's cool. Where was the event at?
It's in South Carolina. That's where Sorinex is.
Okay.
In outside of Lexington, South Carolina. So it was awesome, man. It was good to feel normal too. Yeah, to go to it was a fairly large event, but to go to an event, and I did have to get a COVID test and just to attend. But yeah, it was good. We had a good time.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw on your Instagram the forging of your knife. It's pretty awesome. I know a guy that does that, and I thought, man, you know what? We should just schedule time, me and my son, and have him,
we should
make a knife.
It was awesome.
So
I'd
cool.
never done it before, so it was my very first attempt. And it looks okay. It looks fine. It looks fine. Not awesome. It could use a lot more grinding than it should take, but I don't know if I'll even grind it down. I might just, because I didn't harden it or anything. We just didn't have time. So I might just keep it as a little bit of a memory of what we did while we were down there. But yeah, it was good to see Bert and all the guys and the Revettes, and they cooked us food, and amazing. Just an amazing thing that he and Sorinex put together. It's awesome. So I'm back playing catch up. Just had a good interview with Eddie Penny. So that one's going to come out in a couple of weeks, and just playing catch up today. Yeah. But I wanted to do this AMA because I saw the questions that we got on Instagram, and they're good, man. We had some really good questions.
Yeah, really good questions, actually. And a lot, as always. So
so let's crank through as many as we can today. We got about an hour to hammer through them all. Yeah.
And with that said, guys, that's at Ryan Michler is the Instagram handle to get connected there, to see the knife, as well as to submit future questions when Mr. Michler asks for them.
That's right.
You can't submit questions until then. So you have to wait until you're called.
Every once in a while people do. And I'm like, look, I'm never going to remember this question. I'm never going to write it down anywhere. So don't DM me with your question. If you have a question that you'd like me to give you some feedback, that's one thing. But if it's for the AMA, I just won't remember. There's so many other things to do.
Yeah. Copy that. All right. Let's jump into them. So Coach Brett B, what is the area of your business you had to upskill yourself on the most, or what blind spots did you have 2 to 3 years ago that you've since become more aware of and addressed?
So Brett's a friend of mine, Brett Bartholomew. He's actually been on the podcast before. He's a stud. He's doing great work. So within the coaching community, what skill, the one skill I think about that I needed to improve was my ability to speak to others. Believe it or not, I tend to be naturally, I don't want to say introvert, because I don't like putting introvert, extrovert labels on it, because then it makes it feel like you have to fit into that box. But it's not, I don't get overly energized by talking with other people and by being around a bunch of other people. That's not something that I would naturally gravitate towards. I enjoy it. I can do it. But being able to host an hour-long conversation with somebody is a skill set that I just was lacking with. When I started podcasting, Pat McNamara was at this Sorinex WinterStrong event, and him and I were talking, and he's like, man, I just really enjoyed doing your podcast. And he gave me a couple very nice compliments about the way that I host the meeting. And he was like, how has that evolved, or how did you do that? And I told him that I used to write down literally 10 questions that I would ask my guest. And he was like, yeah, people do that when I go on other podcasts. And he's like, it's not good, because I might share something and then they just go, good, got it. And they go to the next question as opposed to diving into that. So I've really had to learn how to be a conversationalist, which for me and a lot of guys listening, is not easy. For a lot of guys that are listening, you probably think it's very easy. But for me and other people, it's not easy to be a conversationalist. So learning how to ask good questions, how to explore different topics, how to keep a conversation on point. Because I do have some guests who, they're so excited about what they're talking about. And 1 minute they're here, next minute they're there, and they're all over the place. So being able to direct that conversation to a coherent semi-organized conversation can be a challenge at times, but that's something that I've really, really worked hard to do. And then I think he said blind spots. Believe it or not, as a former financial advisor, taxes were rough on me the first year we really started to make money here with Order of Man. And I got hammered because I didn't set it up correctly and I wasn't doing my quarterlies. And I eventually brought a good accountant in to be able to help us and take care of all this stuff. That was a big deal. And then one of the things I'm really working on, I would say over the last 8 to 12 months, is having the right people in the right place. And that's an old Stephen Covey concept, I think, the right people in the right place on the bus. And hiring people to do certain elements of the business, from podcast editing and design to booking and securing podcast guests to helping me with logistics of travel and things like this. And that's something that I don't easily relinquish control of those things. So, but it's proven to be a very worthwhile investment.
Yeah. It's always tough to let go of the reins a little bit, huh?
Yeah. Cause it's your baby, right? It's your thing. It's like, this is mine. And what I was telling myself, and this isn't true by any means, but what I was telling myself is I can do this better than anybody else can. And that's just a lie.
Yeah.
But it's an ego driven response, but
yeah. But even if that was true, the need to delegate so you free yourself up to the things that you need to focus on, whether you could do that really good or not, is still necessary, don't you think?
Well, and let's be real, like there are some things that I can do better than anybody else in my business. One of which is having the conversations.
Yeah.
So I need to free up myself and my mental capacity to be able to excel at the thing that I'm good at and the thing that I enjoy, and the things that I don't enjoy, even if I am good at them, should be delegated to other people because A, they're good at it. B, they're energized by it, and C, it frees up my time to be able to focus on the things that are actually going to move the needle in the business and the organization in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. In fact, Corey Spillman, he had a question later on. He was asking actually if you're hiring. So on that subject of you delegating, do you want to mention any open recs at
we're not hiring right now, but I envision that we will need some media people in the very near future. We're going to need some design work. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, although there isn't a specific opening right now.
Okay. Do you recommend guys reach out if they're, I don't know, or just wait? Don't bombard his Instagram.
No. But if something comes available, we'll make sure to let people know.
Got it. All right. J. Matthew King, when it comes to time, how will you advise, how will you advise your kids on higher education? I'm thinking in terms of college versus trade school versus starting their own businesses.
We're going to have a lot of questions and conversations leading up to that point. So it isn't one day, hey, you're going to graduate in the next 60 days. What have you thought about doing with your life?
Yeah.
No, we're having conversations. I'm getting them involved in my business, and we're exploring their interests and hobbies and activities so that we can start to explore paths now. So my oldest is almost 13. So, we got 5 years, but we're exploring paths right now. And then we talk about what is interesting, what is compelling, what do you need to do in order to pursue that route. With higher education, I know I give higher education and the public school system a bad rap. I do. You guys know that. You've been listening to me for long enough where you know that. Let me be very clear what I mean when I talk about higher education. If you need formal higher education in order to pursue your career, I think it can be very advantageous. If you're going to be a doctor and you needed to go to school to be a doctor, then I think you probably ought to consider that very strongly.
Yeah.
Or a lawyer or an engineer, anything in the STEM type industries, right? If you're going for a liberal arts degree, no, I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should incur 50, 60, 80, $100,000+ of debt so that you can have 4 years of fun, be indoctrinated into things that actually aren't going to serve you well in your life, and then be straddled with this debt as you get into real life. I don't think you should do that. Which is why
it's going to be free.
That's true too. Yeah, that's true too. That's another conversation. Which is why I'm an advocate for trade schools. In fact, I think we could actually begin to implement some of this stuff, journeyman type apprenticeship programs, even earlier than higher education. You know, if you have a child who's very interested in mechanics and engineering, why wouldn't there be an engineering path of high school? Like, why are we teaching them all like everything generally? It's like, no, he's in the engineering program in high school. Why? I don't understand why you wouldn't be that. Or if you're very musically inclined and you want to go that route, or you want to build, or you want to work on cars, and you want to do one of these trades, I really think there ought to be paths, even in that high school level, where children could start funneling into this. Because why would you wait? Like, there's things I learned in high school that some I will use. Absolutely. And some things I will never use. Never. So yeah, I that's why I'm an advocate and proponent of trades and craft, what am I trying to say here? Trade routes, so that these kids can actually learn applicable skills, knowledge, and information to apply. So long story short, we're going to have a lot of these conversations with my kids. We're going to be facilitating education and learning on the path they choose. I'm going to be introducing them to the things that they are interested in. And then ultimately, it won't be this like, one day you graduate high school and then you're in college. It's like, no, we're going to transition to that over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. All right. Greatest dad mindset. Have you had any beliefs or perspectives shift since you wrote your book? What, if any, amendments would you make?
You know, I don't think I'd make any amendments necessarily, but I may explain things deeper, and certain elements deeper, and I will. Yeah. So sovereignty, in fact, I have a new book that is in the works right now. So sovereignty was a book about leading yourself. If I had to take everything else away and I just had to distill it down to what it was about leading yourself.
Yeah.
What values, what virtues, what problems exist? Why is it important you take ownership and responsibility? So it was all about leading yourself. So I wouldn't make an amendment to it necessarily, but I would explain further. And the next book is going to be about taking the idea of a sovereign individual, a sovereign man, and now taking that leadership principles that he's leading himself and turning that outwards to his family, his business, and his community specifically. So that answers the question. What would I do differently? Nothing different. I would just expound. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next book.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Soda, what do you think about functional bodybuilding?
When he says that, when you say bodybuilding, sometimes I think of competing in bodybuilding. That's naturally what I'm drawn to.
Yeah.
So I'm not, but you said functional. So
which is the opposite of bodybuilding typically.
Yeah. Bodybuilding to me is more of the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I actually don't think it's a good thing. Like, I mean, I get it. I understand. I'm not diminishing anybody who does that. I just don't understand why you just want to look big, but it isn't actually going to apply in your life. But that's me, a very pragmatic individual. If I'm going to do something, it's for a purpose. It's for a reason that I'm doing that thing. So when you say functional bodybuilding, maybe what you mean is just getting strong and building muscle. And I think, yes, you should do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's functional, right? By design.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to assist
you.
So
if we're off on what you're asking, maybe you could let us know if there's something specific or different. But when I hear bodybuilding, I think of bodybuilding competitions. I tend to view what I do in the gym as strength training. And because I want to be strong so that if I get in an accident, I can lift the car hood off my wife. Or if I have to run for 200 yards to get out of an active shooter situation or to carry somebody somewhere, then I want to be able to do that. Or if I get into a physical altercation, I want to be able to have the muscle mass and the skill set, of course, that's another conversation, the skill set, but the muscle mass to be able to deliver a powerful blow and to receive, if needs be, a powerful blow. That's all functional stuff, but I look at it as strength training, not necessarily bodybuilding.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Tyler M. Miller, ways to build better relationships with the men in your life.
Go do something together. Like, really, like, just go do something. Anything. Don't have conversations. No, let me say it this way. It's not about just having a conversation. Like, I don't think if I invited you over, Kip, and I'm like, hey, Kip, you want to come over and have a coffee and we'll talk? That's not like a great way to develop relationships with men. But if I said, hey, Kip, I'm going to the shooting range, or I'm going to the golf course, or I'm going to go train jujitsu. Would you like to come? And then conversations and lessons and experiences and perspectives were shared in the midst of the activity. That's a better way, I think, for men to develop and have relationships, because you're pushing against something. You're working towards something. You're pushing against something. There's challenge. There's contention. There's competition. All of these things are in healthy doses, are very good for men. And so we weave conversations around a meaningful and significant activity. So find out what an activity is. Or if you don't have any men in your life, and a lot of guys are in this boat because I hear from guys, then go where they are and get and put yourself in their environment around an activity. I've been to a lot of pickup basketball games. I've gone on hikes. I've gone to conferences. I've gone to courses. I went to this WinterStrong thing. I knew a lot of people there, but a lot of people I've met who I'd never had conversations with. I met a guy, his name's Josh Hall. He builds surfboards out of San Diego. We spent a lot of time together this weekend, but it wasn't like we were just talking. We were shooting our bows and we were doing stuff. And then we were having those conversations mixed in with the actual activities.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I was just talking to someone just last week. They're like, what is the Iron Council? Is someone that training, they're talking about the podcast. And that's one of the things I mentioned. It's like, the reality is like most guys, or even people in general, have friends based upon like accidents. You know, it's like, well, we played sports together, or it's my spouse's friend's husband or whatever. Like, we're not like joining tribes because like those are good, valuable people that are on the same path. It's usually because of some completely bad filtering process, you know, that we end up with certain people. And so that's what I was kind of telling him, is like, that's one of the benefits of the Iron Council is like-minded men, you know, men that are focused on leveling up and becoming better. And that's what makes that community so powerful. So
I think the word that I've used in the past is your friendships are usually, to your point, going to be found in proximity. So if you work with somebody, that guy's probably going to be your friend at some point, to some capacity. If you live next door to somebody, that's probably the person you're going to hang out with, right? That's what you're saying. And I love that you're also saying those are bad filtration systems, because the fact that a dude lives next door to you says nothing about his performance, says nothing about who he is as an individual, or what he values, or what his morals or principles are, or how he's performing. It says none of that. So we as men need to do a better job at not being so wrapped up in proximity. We do that because it's easy and convenient, right? The guy lives next door to me. Easy. You got to not go the easy route, and you have to go the intentional route. Like, I know if I go to jiu-jitsu, now I don't maybe know about their morals and principles or religious beliefs, but I know that the guy likes to work hard. I know that he wants to be strong and capable, and that's a pretty good qualifier. Not the only, because look, there's guys that I train with who I don't hang out with outside of the gym, and there's guys that I do, because that happens to be one little piece of the pie, and then you look at these individuals well-rounded, but it's a lot more intentional just saying, I don't know, I just went to high school with that guy. He was a loser and so was I, and we were getting drunk every Friday night, and then we just never grew out of the relationship because it was so easy.
Yeah, well, okay, but
it's not probably serving you as a 40-year-old man like it was. It wasn't even serving you as an 18-year-old kid, but it's certainly not serving you as a 40-year-old man.
Yeah, totally. All right. The Designed Man. What's the book you've read in the last year that's had the most influence on you?
Dude, I just read an incredible book. I think it's on my nightstand. I bought it in the airport yesterday as I was flying home.
Really?
And it was
a random book.
Just a random book.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's awesome. And the best thing, it's not the best thing, but one of the best things about it is I read it on an hour-long flight from Washington to Portland, Maine. It's an hour and 15-minute flight. And I read the entire thing in that time frame. So it's a quick read. It's called The Archer by Paulo Coelho. He also wrote The Alchemist, who a lot of you guys are familiar with. But essentially the premise of the book is this young man is looking for this world famous archer who he heard about, but has since retired and nobody knows where he is. And this young man who is an archer as well finds him in this village in the middle of nowhere. And he says, I can compete with you. I'm better than you at this. And so he competes with this grand archer who hasn't picked up a bow in, 20 or 40 years or whatever. And then there's a young child who happens to observe this competition, and the archer teaches the young child different lessons about the way of the archer. And it's very, very applicable to life. In fact, I just went online before we jumped on and I bought 10 copies because it's a great giveaway book too, which is something I do. If I find a book I really like, I'll usually jump online. I'll buy 5-10 copies and I'll send them to different people for different reasons, which is, you guys are asking a lot about how do you add value to people's lives. It's a very simple, effective way.
Simple way to do it.
Yeah. It's a gift. It's gratitude. It lets people know I'm thinking about you. It's thoughtful. And then it's also mutually beneficial because it ties you closer with people that you want to be tied to. So that's a great way to give value, but The Archer is a very good book.
It's funny how has all those giveaway books kind of always been the smaller versions. Cause I think like As a Man Thinketh is one that I've gifted a lot.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Viktor Frankl's
War and
book,
Peace.
Man's
Search for Meaning.
Yeah. War and Peace.
Yeah. You don't want to, the big giveaway, the big books like are probably not great giveaways unless it's somebody you know.
Because the effort, right?
Right. Yeah. Because look, I get a lot of books. I got a lot there. And if I were to scroll over to here, I don't know if you can see them that well, but there's, 10 to 15 books right there on my desk.
Yeah.
Those are books that people just randomly send me. And some I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. And a lot of them just look like extra work to me.
Yeah.
So you got to be, again, this is where the thoughtfulness comes in, so, well, I'll give you another example. Hold on one second. Let me grab this. Matt Hulk. He's in the Iron Council. He just sent me this. I got this the other day. Assorted Gems of Priceless Value.
This was an old school book.
Yeah, it's an old school book. Very thoughtful. Cool. He probably thought that there was a reason or some things in here that I should. Oh, look, I didn't even see the note because I just got it. But there's a note in here. This is just a very thoughtful way to give people gifts and let them know you're thinking of them and add value to their lives. But make sure it's something that's gonna make sense for them.
Yeah, send them a Webster dictionary.
Yeah. Here, read this.
You need
send
to
them white fragility. If you sent me white fragility or whatever it's called, it's probably not a thoughtful gift. Something
and don't say anything meaningful. Just say you need to read this.
Read this. This would be good for you. All right. What else?
All right, Buster Caballero. Do you find the more you progress, the smaller your circle of friends and influence gets?
Totally, of course.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work.
Would you say your influence gets smaller though? I mean, no, maybe your circle of friends, but I think your influence gets bigger.
Oh yeah, our influence definitely grows for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we podcast, every time we put information out there, every time I go to a conference or an event like WinterStrong or something like this, our influence certainly grows without a doubt.
Yeah.
But then I'm also more selective on how I'm going to spend my time because your influence will grow. You're going to be presented and afforded more opportunities than you would have otherwise been presented. So you need to be more selective with how you spend your time. You need to get better at saying no. You need to know what it is you value, know what it is you're after, know where you're going to spend time, know where you're not going to spend time so that you're not just bombarded and inundated. And it's hard because I have a lot of people who reach out, even in the area, who would like to get together occasionally or whatever, or, pick my brain and I want to help. I do. I want to be helpful. I want to help these individuals. I want to give them any insight that maybe they think I could potentially give them. But if I did that for everybody, I would not have time for myself. I would not have time for my family. I wouldn't do my hobbies and activities. I wouldn't be able to be as engaged as I am in the podcast and adding value this way. So I've learned to be increasingly selective of who I give my time to. And it really is, like, I know this might sound a little egotistical. It really is a gift. You know, if I get on the phone with you, you call me up and, hey, can we sit down and do this thing? I feel like I'm gifting you something. I'm giving you my time. That's very valuable. Totally. And vice versa. If somebody's sitting down with me, I feel honored that they would carve out some of the time of their day to sit down with me. That's a gift that they're giving me. So I do have to be very selective with how I do it. And it's just gonna be the case as you continue to grow and your influence grows and expands, such as life.
Totally. And it's funny that you say this, because like I've even seen scenarios where like a get together or something, like people are a little bit superficial, like they're not as present. Right. And I actually have this little bit, and it's not from an ego. Well, maybe it is my ego, but a little bit of like, you're wasting my time. You know what I mean? Like, you're not even present to the conversation. You know what I mean? And it kind of rubs me wrong a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, I understand. I get that. It's hard. You know, it's just hard. It's hard. You know, I was talking with somebody down here in South Carolina earlier this weekend. And, he was talking about Joe Rogan. And he said something like, could you imagine if Joe Rogan was here, how that would be? And I said, I don't even know if he could come to an event like this. I mean, even if he wanted to be here and maybe he got invited, I don't know. I don't even think he could come because he would be inundated. He would be bombarded. He would not be able to enjoy anything that we had going on because everybody would. Jocko's probably the same way.
Well, look at
famous
Jocko
movie stars.
At the main event, you know, it's a little bit like you feel sorry for the guy. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Yes, I know what you're saying. He does a really good job. You're talking about at immersion camp, right?
Yeah, at immersion camp. Yeah. Cause he kind of gets bombarded with.
He does get bombarded. He likes it, I think. And he's very gracious the way that he talks with people and spends time with them. But yeah, it would be a real challenge to be one of these guys who everywhere they go, they're very recognizable, and it would be a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So this question is going to skip, but I think maybe you could allude to something fairly quickly on this. So, because we already know what the answer is, and maybe it's just a quick answer. So, Naman Hingorani, things to have in order by your mid-20s.
Oh, things to have in order by your mid-20s? Dude, you're young still, frankly. So, I mean, I don't know that you're going to have everything in order, but I would just say that you need to be on the path. You need to be getting your fitness in check. You really need to start dialing in your money. You should start investing as early as you can. I wish I would have invested earlier. You need to work on your communication skills, and you need to focus heavily on building out a solid network. If I would have done those things much earlier in my life, I would be so much further than I am right now. And you don't know, you don't, if you, sometimes people say, if you could go back in time, what would you do? And I'm like, I don't know, because you only know what you know. So it is an interesting thing, because as an older person, or getting older, you have some more experience under your belt, and that's good, but you have less time. And then as a younger individual, you have more time, but you have less experience. And so at some point, those they intersect, right? I feel actually like that's where I'm at right now, where I'm still fairly young. I'm almost 40. So I've got plenty of time, and I've got a lot of experiences under my belt, and I feel really good with where I am right now. Yeah. So I don't try to project myself into the past or future. Here's where I am. I'm right here. What do I need to know? And this individual, that's what I'd say. Money, fitness, relationships, experiences.
Yeah. Terry Hone, most interesting takeaway from the WinterStrong, and why?
I don't know if there was one specific takeaway. So somebody asked me when I went there, they said, his name's Brian. He said, hey, what do you want to get from this weekend? And I said, I don't know.
What's the objective of the event? Is it for fun? Is it kind of like
it's a little bit of a fun, let's all get together. We're all like-minded. Okay. Let's learn some new outdoor experiences. Like, we were working with bow drills, which I know is something that you really like. Outdoor survival skills. We did some long range shooting, pistol shooting. I took an optics class for rifle, optics that was amazing.
Super
So we
cool.
learned about that, how to sight them in, how they work. So just like learning and being there. But the gentleman asked me, he said, what do you want to take away from this? And I said, I don't know. Because I try to go to these events with little expectations. Because in the past, what I've done is I've thought about, okay, I want to do this and this and this and this, and I want to get all this stuff done and do all this stuff. And then I leave disappointed because I didn't meet my objective. But then if I look back at it, I think to myself, I just lost 2 days of my life because I was so focused on it being this thing that I wasn't fully present for what else organically could have happened. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't about my biggest takeaway and like, what's the one thing you learn that you're going to apply to be better? It was just being there. Whatever opportunities presented themselves, I was like, I'm fully into this thing. I'm going to do it. If it's scary or new, like forging a knife, I'm going to do it. I had an opportunity. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to jump right into it. If I had these weird, faulty expectations, I may not have approached it the same way. But the biggest benefit for me leaving was the people, for sure. It was the new connections that I made, the conversations that I had, the perspectives that I experienced. It was phenomenal. It was the people. It's always the
people. Yeah. All right. Project. Man, where do these people come up with these names? Project 245.
In high school when they were, I don't know, drunk and they're setting up their first email account, like Fluffy Bunny 37.
Sexy Man 37.
Yeah. Yep.
That Hotmail. MALE.
That was AOL. AOL.
That's my old man joke whenever like, what's your email? My Kipp at Hotmail. And I'm out. And that's MAIL. And some people laugh and other people are like, whatever.
You mean MALE?
No, yeah, but I'm clarifying that it's not hot.
The fact that you even have to explain that means it's not funny, Kipp.
Okay.
Proceed.
Hey, the question is, did you finish 75 hard? How's that going?
I'm going to do it again. I did not ever finish it. I was very close. I think I got to like day 50 something, 57 or something, and I never finished it. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it again and actually finish it this time.
Are you going to wait? Are you starting mid-quarter or are you going to wait for next quarter?
No, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to start. There's no reason to wait. Yeah. It's not going to be part of my battle plan or anything. It's just do it.
Something to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Copy. All right. Kevin Breyer, what does your recording filming setup consist of?
Super easy. This microphone, which is the, Shure 7M SM7B is what this is. And then a Rode boom mic. I've got another one, the exact setup just right across because I'm at a table just in case somebody comes here. I've got a little Logitech or something HD camera right here that I'm using for the video here. And then I've got some different lights. You can see that one there. I've got the blue light behind me. I've got this big light right there. Just some other things like that. That's it. When I go on the road, I have a Sony microphone headset combo that I use, which I'm actually not going to use that anymore. Over on my desk right here, just before I left, I got an order in. I got these nice lapel mics. So those will actually plug.
Headsets?
Yeah, because why? It's not necessary and it's just clunky and it just doesn't look good. So I've got that, and then I plug it into a Zoom recorder is what it's called. Not to be confused with the Zoom software, but it's the Zoom recorder. And it's got 4 ports on it, so you can have 4 people on a mic at a time. And I just record onto an SD card. And then I've got some other cameras. I've got a Canon over there. I've got a Sony handheld cam. It's not awesome. It's not special. It's just stuff. Like, I need that, and I need this, and I need that. And gradually it just builds up. And yeah. I don't think it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're going to do them all via Zoom, it's very easy. This Logitech or whatever this is, this HD, I don't even know what they call it. What do they call them? Like laptop
webcam.
Thank you.
Yeah. External webcam.
Yeah. This external webcam is probably $100 if that. These are a little bit more expensive. I can't remember, maybe $400 or $500 for a microphone. But there's the ATR 2100 and that's, I want to say $70.
Yeah.
We use
That's
Zoom.
the one I used for a while, right?
$15 a month. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Zoom costs $15 a month. So technology is so wonderful right now that you don't need to break the bank to start a podcast, to record. It's less than you think it is right now. It's just less than you think it is. You just get started, you go, and then you just build up as you need.
And improve. Yeah.
Yeah.
CRX Tony, how do you find or create the right career in business for you? Not any, the right one.
You make that. You make it the right one. Whatever it is, you just make it the right one. And even if you're dissatisfied with your current job, you make it right. You know, if you're sweeping floors and you don't want to sweep floors, how could you make it better? Maybe you could petition your boss to get some sort of automatic vacuum cleaner so that you could free up time to do something else. That's a dumb example, but I think you understand the point. Yeah. Make it better. That's one question I always ask myself is, how can I make this better? Kipp, you and I have talked about that when in this podcast. How do we make this podcast better? Well, one little simple thing that we did that might seem insignificant to most people is we went from wired headphones to wireless earbuds.
Yeah.
It's better. It's not a big deal, but it's better. I just told you about the podcast. Instead of having these big clunky things that aren't necessary, it's like, I'm going to invest in some lapel mics. I know that my internet, when I'm wireless, is not great. I can do most of my work, but when we're recording a podcast, wireless doesn't work. But I don't have any wired ports. It's all downstairs. So here's what I do. You guys ready? I've got this 100-foot Ethernet cable
running down the hallway,
down the stairs. My wife hates it, to the front room. And then before I jump on a podcast, I tell my wife and my kids, hey, no TV, no computer, no Alexa, nothing right now while I'm on. Yeah. And they're like, oh, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, the reason that you even have these things is because I'm doing a podcast. And if I tell you to be off the internet for an hour, I think you're going to be okay. Or we can make it all day. You want an hour or all day? An hour. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what has to happen. So I'm constantly thinking about how to improve, how to get better, how to make situations better. And it's the same thing with your job. Just make it better. In the meantime, just take one step into something that you're interested in. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's guiding hunts, or maybe it's doing graphic design or designing websites or doing photography or mechanical work or engineering, or I don't know what your thing is, but just take one step. Not, this is going to be my career, I have to do it. No, one step. I had a guy reach out on Instagram the other day and he's like, how do I turn how do I create a real estate flipping company and make this my full-time job? I don't actually know, because that's not what I do. So you're asking the wrong guy first. So first I would say, ask somebody more qualified than me. But what I did tell him is I said, just learn how to flip your first property.
Yeah.
That's it.
Do that but I want to figure out what it entails.
I want to make this a career. I want to make this a thing. And like, that's great. That's fine. But you still got to sell your first property. And before that, you got to buy it. So maybe just find some listings. And that's the first step. And the second step is to secure a little bit of funds. And the third step is to actually buy the first property. The fourth step is to improve it. The fifth step is to sell it. Okay, now you're a real estate flip. You flipped a house. So you are a real estate house flipping person. And then if you like it, you do it again. And if you're like, that was miserable, I hated it, I didn't like it, I didn't find any value, then okay, well, you made 10 grand, 30 grand, whatever. And then you do something else.
Yeah.
And that's fine too.
Or you might find out that like the real estate part you don't like, but the other part that you really liked was the remodeling of the house or something else. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, your passion is found in some aspect of your current job, maybe.
Not even found. I mean, technically, I guess, you found it. But again, I'm very hesitant. We've talked about this in the past, to use the word found.
Because it's some elusive thing outside your control. Yeah.
It's just too passive. You didn't find it. You actually went out and busted your ass to find a property, to get the financing taken care of, to find the right contractors, or to do it yourself, to repair the place, to list it, to sell it. Like, you didn't find that.
Yeah.
Like, you created that. And that's why I choose to look at it that way, because there isn't some magical thing that's sitting out there in unicorn land that if only you find it, everything's going to be happy. And so when people ask questions like this, I think to a degree, that's what they think, that once they find their thing, that life's just going to be better. No, it's you said it in the past. It's what is it? How does it go? Be do have do be, whatever, however it goes.
Yeah. Be do have.
Right. So be this person who would do these things, and then you can have the life that you're after. It's the same thing when I started the podcast. Oh, Ryan, I wish I was a successful podcast like you. Okay, well, have you started your podcast? No. Have you bought your equipment? No. What are you going to talk about? I don't know. Okay, well, so what do you want? Well, I just want to be successful at podcasting. Oh, okay. So what the hell are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And that's what I did when I podcasted, is I started the podcast in my financial planning practice. It actually didn't start as a podcast. What I did, some of you guys know this story, is I was meeting with clients and I was getting frustrated with my clients, or I should say prospects. I was getting frustrated with prospects because I was meeting with them and my conversion rate to turn them into a client was so miserably low. And I felt like I was just wasting all my time talking with people who weren't interested in buying financial services. So I thought, well, how could I get that out of the way? And somebody had suggested to me that if you could educate them before they come in, then they would come in warm and ready to go. So I recorded my first presentation, the presentation I'd have with a prospect, and I put it on a CD. I went to Staples or Office Max or whatever it was. I bought a bunch of blank CDs. I bought I think it's called a Blue Yeti microphone. I still have it. And I recorded a 15-minute presentation. I went to some local photographer. I had some pictures. They took some pictures of me, and I bought the little stickers that go on CDs.
Yeah.
And I put that on the CD, and I would hand put every single one of those on the CD, and I had the blank CD cases, and I would just hand those out to people. I'm like, hey, if you're interested in financial services, or if the opportunity presented itself. And I realized that the people who came in after they had listened to that, my conversion rates exploded because they'd already gone through the sales presentation. They were already on board. And so they were coming in to do business. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. So then I'm like, well, I wonder if a podcast would work. And long story short, that worked. And I started picking up clients that way. And then one day I was like, I really don't want to have this same old conversation on the podcast. I want to have a different conversation. So we launched Order of Man. And then we sold crappy t-shirts, which I think you have one of the original shirts. Yeah. And then we started the Iron Council, and then we brought an event on, and then we, hit a home run, and we had Jocko on, and then we did this, and then it grew over time because I just took one step that led to another, to another, to another, to another, and here we are. Not just like one day I woke up and I'm gonna have 700 podcasts in the bank. I'm gonna talk to 330 incredible men. No, I had to get to that point and work there.
Yeah. Well, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when you look at what you've created with Order of Man, like your passion that you love, which I think you've mentioned in the past, is marketing.
Yes, of course.
And that was like a found, like, whoa, like I really love this aspect of business. And theoretically, not that you would or are, but like theoretically you could spin that and go, oh, okay, I want to market other things. And maybe it's not Order of Man, but now you created that understanding of yourself, or that skill set and that interest through creating a podcast. And who knew? And I'm assuming marketing wasn't maybe even on the radar originally. And you found that, through that entire process.
Right. And learning how to have great conversations and being able to network with people. That's a powerful skill. Like being able to build out a powerful network. If I needed something, I could make a phone call in the next 5 minutes and have what it is I needed, because awesome. I built out that network, and there's value to that, of course.
Yeah. All right. Brett Hawk 24. How do you best deal with the doubters?
Why do you need to deal with doubters?
Yeah. I'm assuming, like, do you think people in your life, maybe family that are doubters?
So what?
Does it matter?
The only person that matters actually is your wife.
Yeah.
If she doubts you, that's trouble. And my list of the only people it should matter for is literally just your wife. Not your girlfriend, not your mom, not your dad, nobody. Not me, not you, no one. The only person who you actually need on your side is, if it applies, is your wife. Everything else is just gravy. Now, likelihood that your parents are going to support you, but you don't need it if they don't. So why does that matter? Why does that matter? Now, look, here's one caveat to that, I would say. If there's somebody in your life, let's say that you have a mentor or somebody that is credible, that's important, and you think highly of, and they say to you, Ryan, I doubt this will work, then your response should be, please tell me why. And then they tell you why, and then you fix it. Right? So if one of my mentors, Pete Roberts, let's say, because he's a friend, yes, but he's also a business mentor. If he came to me and he said, Ryan, I noticed something in your business model that you really should be aware of, and here's something to consider because I doubt the track you're on is the right one, I would take that to heart and I would say, okay, because you're credible, because I respect you and you know what you're talking about, tell me more and how should I improve? But outside of that, people doubt me, people mock me, people hate on what we're doing, they say mean things, and they're not making my mortgage payment.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not raising my children. They're not
How do you not
ensuring
let
that
that
I'm
bother
confident
you,
who I
though?
am. It does bother me. You know, like I know there's a lot of people say, just don't let it bother you. No, it does bother me. But then I usually will follow it up with the literally thousands of other messages who are like, Ryan, you've changed my life. Ryan, that guest you had on was incredible and I bought his book and now I'm doing this. Ryan, I just started a business. Ryan, I saved my marriage. Ryan, I blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, oh, cool. So that one dickhead over here actually doesn't really play a very important role in the grand scheme of things.
Totally.
So I'm not going to say it doesn't bother me. I'm a human being. Of course, it stings when somebody says you're an idiot or what you're doing is bad or what, of course. But it's just drowned out by the thousands and thousands of people who are positively affected and impacted by what it is we're doing. I learned this lesson a long time ago in the financial planning practice. I literally had, in fact, I probably still do if I looked. I literally had a folder in my emails of like positive words of encouragement from other people. So my clients would send me a message and they'd say, hey, Ryan, I just want to let you know I really appreciate your advice. We just sent our oldest off to college and it was so comforting knowing that we had the money set aside where they could do that. Thank you. And so I quite literally had a folder in my email inbox of positive and encouraging testimonials that I could draw upon when I was having a bad day or I didn't close a case or a client. I could pull that up and say, nope, you're still doing good things. And I get to see that every day via social media. The one jerk is infinitesimally small relative to the thousands of people who are positively impacted by what we're doing.
Totally. Yeah, that's funny. I take screenshots of those things. Like when I get messages like, oh, that AMA, you said this comment, or in the IC, I'm like, think, and I do the same thing. So if I'm having a really bad day, I'm like, what are we doing? Is this even helping? And then I can scroll through those. It's kind of weird, but yeah.
And by the way, and I'm not fishing for compliments here, but you should do that too. And what I mean by that
is people know.
You should let people know. That's right.
Yeah.
If there's somebody in your life, and again, I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm telling you that if there's somebody in your life, whether it's your mom or your sister or a friend or a colleague or a boss or a mentor who has helped you, then you should reach out to that individual and say, thank you for helping me. Because of your insight, I was able to accomplish this thing that meant a lot to me. You should do that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for this. Number one, it's just the right thing to do. Number two, it's a good gift to give to somebody. We're talking about adding value earlier.
It's so meaningful.
Yes, it is. And number three, you're opening your mind to the concept and idea of gratitude, which will make you more satisfied with what you already have and not be so discontent with what maybe you don't. So there's a lot of reasons that you should be practicing that.
Yeah. And get out of your own head a little bit. You know what I mean? And express that to someone else's, I think is just highly valuable.
And not only that, it will come back to you.
Yeah.
Like you cannot give something and not have it come back, usually tenfold.
Yeah.
For example, if you want to be loved, here's something a lot of guys want. They won't say it. And they won't usually use that word love, because we only have really one in the English language, one meaning of love. It's romantic love rather than brotherly love. So they won't say it. But if you want more love in your life, give your love to people. If you want to build wealth in your life, invest in other people. That means give them money, invest in them, and then it will come back to you. Whatever you give away with the right motive and the right intention, it will inevitably come back. It will always come back. It has to come back.
Like it. CDLTN, how do you and your wife navigate stressful and difficult times together?
We actually don't have a lot of those times. And I think it's not because they wouldn't exist. I think it's because we head them off very quickly through constant communication.
Yeah.
We have little tiffs and little arguments and disagreements and little spats here and there, but they're not usually stressful, long lasting. There's no contention or animosity or challenging times.
Because you address them right away.
We address them. We head them off. It's like, oh, here's something. There's a little threat. We don't want it to burrow into our lives. Like, what do we have to do to deal with this? And so we deal with it. The other thing too is there are external threats. And there are external circumstances that would create stress in the relationship that are outside of our control. And to that, I would say that we have a commitment to each other, and that always is first. I'm on your team. In fact, when we get into arguments, I will typically say something along those lines. Hun, we're on the same team. I'm on your team. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. I don't agree with what you're saying or what we're doing,
but we're still on the same team.
Exactly. At the foundation of what we're doing, I'm on your team. You're on my team. You have to believe that. I want you to believe that. I want you to know that. And I want to believe that of you. And that is one of the most important things. Because if you don't get that right, nothing else is going to go right. Because there's all sorts of little things that could come into the relationship that would cause little wedges and little drifts if you don't have that foundational belief that we are a team, that we're on the same team. And then you prepare yourself ahead of time. What could potentially come up? Illness, bankruptcy, a job loss, unexpected expenses. These are all things that as a man, they're going to come up. You need to be aware of them and prepared for them so that when they happen, you aren't going to be left high and dry. You'll be able to deal with it, and it won't be as stressful had you not prepared for that thing. I heard on somebody's podcast the other day, they said something about when do you become an adult? It was like something like that. And as I was listening to the individual answer the question, I think they did a good job on it, but I was thinking about what I would say. And my response is when you're sufficient enough to be able to take care of yourself, and B, that you're sufficient enough that you've learned to take care of others. Yeah. That's when you become an adult. Because otherwise you're just behaving like a child. Like my children, for example, they're not adults. We don't even expect them to be, because they can't take care of themselves, and they certainly can't take care of anybody else. There's isolated moments, like my daughter might, pick her younger brother up when he falls and try to, comfort him. There's isolated moments, but generally, like, they can't take care of anybody else. So they're children. And that's why you have 50-year-old, 40-year-old men in mommy and daddy's basement playing video games, watching porn, doing whatever it is they're doing. And they're acting more like children because they're not taking care of themselves. They don't have the resources or capacity to take care of themselves, and they're dependent. So they're not taking care of anybody else. Somebody else is taking care of them. They're still children.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got on. What's even the question at this point?
I don't know how you got there from navigating stressful times with your wife, but
yeah, who knows? But
I can't remember.
you have the conversations. That's what I was saying. You got to be prepared, right? Because that's what it means to be a man, is to anticipate threats to yourself and the people under your care and then deal with them. And then those critical moments won't be as catastrophic because you've already handled what you need to handle.
Yeah. So our next question, Zachary Dell Thayer. He has actually a question about kind of guys giving up on relationships. He says, as a man who has found fulfillment in marriage, how do you make the movements like the red pill or MGTOW, men who are abandoning long-term relationships with women altogether? What would you say to those guys?
I think there's the red pill movement, the MGTOW, I think there are some elements of validity to what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'm like, I kind of get it a little bit.
Yes,
you
totally.
know? Yeah.
But I think these movements generally take things too far. They take it to the extreme, and they become the masculine version of the third and fourth wave feminist movements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's no longer an issue.
All women are this way. Yeah.
Yes. And they're the enemy, and they are bad, and they hate men, and society is out to get us. And so what a lot of these movements perpetuate is the idea that men are the victim, and they just take it completely too far. And then they turn these young men's hearts black. They rot, and it's not conducive or productive anymore. So where do I fall on the relationship scale? That you ought to know who you're getting involved with. You ought to protect yourself. That's important. You ought to make sure that you know who this woman is and what she's about. And you ought to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
But that's all personal responsibility stuff. Now, do people change? Of course. And situations can go sour and they can go bad, and that's unfortunate. And a lot of those are isolated incidents. And a lot of the times we bring that stuff upon ourselves. I'm not saying every instance, but in a lot of instances we do. So I think as long as you can take personal accountability and responsibility for your own life, that the concept of a relationship, a committed relationship with a woman, can be one of the most powerful and effective decisions, tools, and strategies that a man could make. My wife brings so much to the table. She gives me a new perspective, a new thought. She challenges me in good ways. She brings a level of kindness and empathy to my life that I wouldn't have any other way. There's a lot of meaning in trying to serve her and my children well. I wouldn't have that stuff if I wasn't involved in a relationship. Plus, I also believe that the family unit is the fundamental unit of a healthy and thriving society. So if we have a bunch of young men who think women are the enemy, and we have a bunch of young women who think men are the enemy, then we no longer have the ability to create a thriving society based on the fundamental unit of the family. And then who steps into that role? Who becomes mommy and daddy? The government. And they would love to be mommy and daddy. They would love to give you everything that they think you need and keep you from the things they think you should be kept from. This is not conducive to a long-lasting and healthy society. But having families that care about each other, that are committed to each other, that honor their word and their bonds and their agreements with each other, and then work hard to serve, and then teach their children these principles and morals, those societies will thrive. So it's very dangerous to pit men and women against each other, not just for the sake of themselves, but for the sake of the societies that we live in.
Yeah. Brian Matlin, Esquire, do you have a formula for distributing income to your business? How much is set aside for different categories, i.e. owner's compensation and taxes and et cetera?
No, I'm not the best person to ask on this stuff.
Get your CPA.
Yeah, I think your CPA, I mean, we have our tax, strategy in place. We pay our quarterlies. We have our projections, and we know what it is we're going to make. And I make pivots. If I see that something could do better than something else, I can pivot. I can adjust. I evaluate. If the merchandise store is lagging behind based on past numbers, I'll look at that and figure out why it is. Or if the Iron Council is losing members and not gaining any, I'll look at why that is. I tend to be a little bit more intuitive in nature when it comes to these things, as opposed to poring over all of the minutia and fine details. I realize the importance of that, but that just sucks the fun out of it for me. And so I bring people in who can do that so I can focus on the marketing, the communication, the conversation, the messaging and branding. That stuff's way more fun to me and enjoyable. So I just focus on that.
Okay. Heston Shallow Graves, best beginner lifting plan for beginners at the gym. Lifting plan for beginners at the gym.
I don't know. Maybe hire a coach. Maybe if you're going to a gym, maybe they already have something there for beginners. I use Josiah Novak. He's my strength coach. So he gives me plans that I can do whether I'm here at the gym or even when I'm traveling. I can do things like that. But again, I'm more intuitive. This goes back to the last thing. I'm more intuitive. Yeah. It's like, hey, I need to lift, I need to get strong. Starting Strength is another great program that I used for a while. They're going to help you develop core lifts like the deadlift, bench press, push press, squat, and pull-ups. Those are like your core lifts and movements. Yeah. Then you can add ancillary things into that. But there's
would
lots
you say
of them
just
out there.
Get a plan and go and start taking some action and then pivot,
I would find somebody who looks jacked in the way that you want to be jacked and that offers something, whether it's a personal training or an online coaching or some sort of community, or maybe it's an ebook or something. Even Jocko has in his Discipline Equals Freedom manual, I think he even has some workout plans or strategies in there. And I would just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
At Mike some point, you're going to probably graduate. If you keep going, you're going to graduate to a coach at some point. And that is a graduation. Yeah. Like you get to that point where you actually have an individual coach who's giving you catered fitness routines and regimens based on what you're trying to accomplish. You don't need to start there. You could, but you are going to get to that point eventually.
Yeah. All right. Mike Raj 94. Besides Jordan Peterson, who are some people you'd like to get on the podcast?
Oh man, I got a list of people. Let's pull it up here. Mike Rowe is somebody who comes to mind right offhand. I'm just going to pull up my list right now. Dan Crenshaw, Gordon Ramsay I have on my list. Dave Ramsey. I'm looking at some of these guys. I won't disclose them right now, but some of these guys on my list have already agreed to come on. So we're just doing scheduling right now. Actually, one guy I think would be awesome is Keanu Reeves. That'd be just an incredible conversation.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
JJ Watt. I've got a list. Like I've got 200 people that I want to. Gary Sinise is another one. Tim Tebow, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've got an entire list. Daniel Cormier. I just think so highly of him. Tony Hawk. Everybody. I want everybody to come on the podcast.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Evanography. Would you recommend a career in finance, whether it's advising or something else? And is it a viable option for a career change?
Oh, it's a completely viable option. I was a financial advisor for 9 years. Yeah. So it's completely viable and it's very rewarding. Money is a big deal. You're talking about things with people that is going to literally impact their life positively or negatively based on the handle that they have and the grasp they have on these things. So yeah, I think it's incredibly lucrative. It's profitable. It's meaningful and it's rewarding. So yeah, for sure. Pursue it.
Yeah.
If it sounds interesting to you, then pursue it.
It's an interest. Yeah.
Yeah. No, don't do it because you think, I can make a lot of money here. You can. And you can make a lot of money doing 1,000 other things. So why would you pick that one? There's got to be something more to it than just the financial allure of it.
Yeah. All right. Caleb Oliver 96. Growing up, I was always used to the man being the sole provider for income for the family. Any tips on what to look for when planning finances with someone that makes as much money, if not more than you? Is it a simple 50-50 equation? Of course, my income is steadily growing, but for 1 to 5 year time, it will probably be this way.
I don't think you need to be threatened by that. Now, for us, our family dynamic is that I make the income. I provide for both of us financially, and she's the homemaker. So she stays at home and she takes care of the kids and she schools the kids and she does things around the house. She turns the house into a home like that. That is our dynamic and that works really well for us. But I know there's plenty of guys out there who they might stay at home. That's strange to me. I can't personally fathom that. That seems like that would create a lot of problems, but maybe it works. And if it does, cool. But there's other situations where the wife makes more than the husband, and that's cool too. You know, I had a guy email me the other day and he said, "Hey, I'm feeling a little weird about my wife making more than me, and I don't know how." I'm like, "Why? Like, you feel weird that she got a promotion or she's making more money now? Well, that's just more income. That's more resources and assets into the household. That actually should be a good thing. You guys are on a team." Now, the way you do it's going to be different for everybody. We don't do 50-50 because that sounds weird to me. It's just like, it's not 50 of it's mine and 50 of it's yours. It's all yours and it's all mine. Like, it's 100-100.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, totally. Like, we don't split things equally. But I know some people do. And if it works, like if they literally do 50-50 where they have their own separate accounts, again, that doesn't seem right to me. Like, you're committed to this person. Like, it's what's yours is mine. That just seems like it would be that way.
It seems like there's like an underlying problem. I think so. Like, whenever I hear people that do that, I think, okay, so is there a lack of trust going on? Like, I don't know. No, it bothers me.
Well, so I know Caleb. And so he's a friend, and I'm not trying to get into specifics right here, but he's newly engaged. So he's trying to figure out these things that are going to change now that it's not just his income, it's his wife's income. And like, how do they do this now? So it's not that they're like, he's been married and he's like, there's trust issues. It's none of that. Cause I know Caleb. It's that he's trying to figure this out because
they haven't had the conversation yet. And it's like,
exactly.
Copy.
So, you know, I tend to lean more towards what's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. I don't say my income. It's like, this is our money. These are our resources for the money, or for the house rather.
Yeah.
But some people do, you know, and I think here's one situation where I would say that you probably ought to consider, at least for a period of time, keeping it separate, at least elements of it, is when you're on your second marriage. You know, because she's got her own stuff. She might have her own debt. You have your own stuff. You might have your own debt. You know, there's some reasons there on a second marriage where I could think that maybe some of these things ought to be separate. I even think about that when it comes to life insurance and estate planning. Like, if I died, for example, I don't want my wife's next husband's kids to get rich off of the work that I did. That's for my children, not your children. So the way that I have the estate set up, the estate planning and strategy set up, is that if I die, that goes into a trust. She can utilize that money for raising the kids, for herself and raising the kids. I want her to be taken care of. And so she can use that. And if she were to die, then that money doesn't go to Joe Schmo over here, who I don't know and wouldn't like in real life anyways. It goes to my kids. Like 100% of it goes to my kids, not to him and his kids. I don't know them and I don't owe them anything, but I do owe my wife and my kids. So these are contingencies and provisions that we have put in place to ensure that my children, my wife and my children, are taken care of in my absence. There's a lot of considerations here, but I know we haven't given you any real solid advice. I tend to think what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. That's how I do.
That's kind of how I feel about it too. Like, I don't like because then it's like, oh, well, that's your money. And I'm like, no. Like, you are doing what you do that allows me to work. Like, you know, back to your analogy you used earlier, we're on the same team,
right?
There's no two different teams here, right? We have different roles that we might be playing within the team, but it's still the same team. So maybe you just maintain that perspective.
Well, and here's a consideration too. Does the fact that my wife doesn't work outside of the home and get paid for her work make her less valuable to the relationship?
Yeah, not at all.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
So just if you're making $30 an hour and your wife is making $40 an hour, is she 30% more valuable to the relationship than you are?
Yeah.
I mean, she might bring in 30% more money than you do, but is she 30% more valuable in the relationship? No. You're equally valuable in the relationship. And if you didn't think that was the case, or she didn't think that was the case, she wouldn't agree to marry you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Or and vice versa. You wouldn't agree to marry her. You wouldn't have been interested in her. Well, that's not always the case. Some people just make dumb decisions, but that's not the case for Caleb, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Colin Cottrell, what is something you are currently struggling with, and how are you attacking it?
What am I struggling with? I mean, I'm not delaying this because there isn't anything. I'm just delaying it because there's so much that I struggle with. It's like, what do I choose here? I mean, I struggle with patience. Patience is a big one of mine. You know, one way I'm working on that is our project that I'm working on with my son, the canoe, is like, that's really teaching me to be patient and be methodical and do it the right way. So that's been a good one for us. And then the other thing I tend to fall into, and I haven't lately, but I have in the past, especially the end of last year, is just falling into complacency, specifically within the business, because things are like, it feels like
going good.
Yeah, exactly. All the grooves are greased, right? Like everything's just running the way it should, and it's going smoothly, and things are growing. And so I'm like, this is cool. Like, just sit back and like relax. But I know, because I've done this in the past, where, you know, if you take your foot off the accelerator, there is no cruise control button. If I'm going downhill and I'm in my truck and I'm going downhill and I'm going 70 miles an hour downhill and I take my foot off the gas, I'm not going to stop. It's not going to stop, but it is going to slow down. And it might take me 2 miles, maybe even, before I completely stop. But at some point I will stop. The friction, the natural friction of the road or gravity will cause me to stop.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in business. If you take your foot off the accelerator, no cruise control, you're not going to stop immediately, which is actually the danger.
Momentum. Yeah.
Yes, because if it stopped immediately, you would know, I can't take my foot off the accelerator. The trick is that when you take your foot off, it slows down just a little bit, so much so that you might not even notice. And a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And it does it so gradually that sometimes you don't even feel it until you're going 20 miles an hour and you're like, oh man, holy crap, if I don't do something, I'm going to lose it here. And then you hit that accelerator and get back up to 70. And so you do what I've called in the past the accordion effect. I did it in my financial planning practice all the time. I'd go, collect all the revenue. And as I was collecting the revenue, I'd stop. And then the revenue would run dry. And I'm like, oh, go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was just constant accordion. And it was not a good way to live. And it was very stressful. So for me, I have to remind myself, to the degree that I want, to always keep my foot on the accelerator. Sometimes it's heavy. If I'm wanting to pass somebody on the road, sometimes I'm heavy on the accelerator. If I'm just trying to get to point A to point B as safely as possible and just smooth and steady, it might be a gradual progression or just a maintenance thing. But I've always got to have my foot on the pedal, and that's something I'm definitely working on.
Yeah. All right. Last question. You good with this?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Andrew Wall Briggs, how do you work towards eliminating or minimizing resentment towards friends and family?
Treat them as humans. See yourself in them. Like, you make mistakes. Would you want to be forgiven?
Yeah.
For all the dumb shit you've done? Like, I hope people forgive me, man. Like, and there's things that I don't even know I've done. That I don't even know I've done.
Yeah.
You know, there might even be something, and I can't think of anything, but there might be something even between our relationship, Kip, where in the past I like said something and, you know, maybe I shouldn't have said that or it was inappropriate. And you kind of felt that
deep down inside somewhere.
Right. But I don't know, right? Like I don't know. And so I just hope that people will afford me some grace. I actually had to learn this with my father because my father died 3 years ago and there was a lot that was left unsaid and undone between him and I. And I literally missed him passing away. He was in the hospital by 30 minutes. And I don't get to have that conversation with him until I see him on the other side, right? He doesn't get to have that conversation with me. And I realized that what I did over the past 3 years, is I put him on this pedestal of perfection.
Of expectation.
He should have done this. He should have done that. He should have been there. He should have. And I like all these shouldas. because I was measuring him as like a Greek god or something, you know, some perfect human being or perfect father. And if only he was this, then everything would have been good. And I realized, well, that wasn't fair, because I certainly don't belong on a pedestal. Yeah. You know, I try to get things right. I try to do things right. So people mess up, you know, I really try hard not to hold grudges, even if they're people close to me, if they're people far away from me. It's like, you know, somebody who might come in and add a snippy comment. I'm like, I don't know what that guy's dealing with. You know, maybe he just lost his mom or his dad or his wife or something. And so I actually had somebody email me not too long ago I think he actually messaged me on Instagram, and he said, hey, Ryan, I just wanted to message you with an apology. And he said that he had made a comment on one of my posts, and it was kind of a rude comment. And he said that I had handled it maturely in response to him. And he felt bad because he was going through some very difficult times at the time.
And he lashed out a little bit.
Yeah. And he just like took it out through me, through that outlet. That could be everybody. You know, I when I was down in South Carolina this weekend, I was driving down the road, and this guy in his blue Mustang cut me off. Like almost ran me off the road and just like cut me off. And I was pissed at first. And then I was like, I don't know where that guy's going. Like maybe he just got news that his wife is in delivery. I don't know. Or maybe he didn't see me. That's a possibility. Or maybe he just running from the cops. Like, I don't know his story. Like, I don't know. And so what we do is we put all these stories and expectations and filters through the way people behave. And it's just not fair to do, because you don't know. You're making it up. And so rather than that, just try to afford people some grace. Just give them the benefit of the doubt. Because let's say I give this guy in the Mustang who cut me off on the road, let's just say I give him the benefit of the doubt. What's the negative of that for me? Nothing. No. Like, there's literally no downside from me giving the benefit of the doubt, backing up off him, letting him get wherever he needs to get, and then letting me get to where I want to go safely. What's the negative benefit of, you know, forgiving a family member who maybe has slighted you in some way? Like, what could go wrong by you just forgiving? Saying, I don't know their situation, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just let this one go. There's no negative to that. Only positive. So it seems pretty natural to try to make those. It's hard when you feel personally attacked or slighted or offended. It's hard to do, but it is the reality that you're not going to be worse for affording them some grace. You're only going to be better off.
Yeah. What I think that resentment becomes even more difficult when we've attached outcomes in our own life to the action of someone else, and we're blaming them.
Yeah. Good
right.
point.
Where it's like, oh, well, I'm in a bad position because of this person. Yeah. And now it's like you have to drudge yourself through this quasi justification and reminder of why your life's so miserable because of this person, you know. And I do think in those circumstances where it's hard to get your head out of it, it comes back to your sovereignty and taking ownership and realizing that you played a part in the circumstance, right? And it's super easy. I mean, it's super hard to do. I get that, because I think that's very innate, right? When we want to blame other people, or we feel like their actions, you know, caused discomfort or problems for us, and we want to hold on to it because it was wrong or it shouldn't have been that way. Mm-hmm. And we hold on to it, because we don't want to take accountability to change it. Mm-hmm. And we'd much rather like continue, you know, dragging that person along and those negative feelings along just to justify our current state of being, you know. And I see this with even family members where, you know, they're 20 years later, they have relationship problems in a family. Why? Because they're still holding on to the justification that their life sucks ass because of mom and dad.
Right.
And until they're willing to say, hey, you know what? No, it's mine. Right now, this is up to me to change it. Until they take ownership of that, they need to justify their lack of action by blaming it on someone else. And so they'll never let go of that resentment until they take ownership.
Right. I was watching Braveheart I was thinking about Braveheart because something I've got coming up. I was watching The Count of Monte Cristo last week, and it reminds me of what you're saying here. So this guy is falsely imprisoned by his best friend, who then takes his fiance as his wife, and he spends like 16 years
jacked up
in 16 years in this prison in France, and he finally escapes. And his whole plan is to just take revenge on the people that sent him there. And so he's going through this elaborate plan, and his enemies are falling into place. And his right-hand man, I think his name is, I can't remember what his right-hand man, but his right-hand man essentially says, what's wrong with you? Take the money, take the woman, and have what is yours. You have this beautiful woman who still loves you. You're wealthier than any man I've ever met. Just take that and leave. Take the treasure. Take what you've earned. And he finally comes to his senses, and you guys know the rest of the story. But that's this situation that you're talking about. You know, we get so hung up, and in a way, we get in our own ways because we want to get them, we want to get them back, and we want to hold on to this because they don't deserve our grace. Put a period in it. End it. Like, go live your life now. All right. It's over. It sucked. It was horrible. It was tragic. The person shouldn't have done that. All of those things. But now it's over. Take what is yours, which is the rest of your life. 20, 30, 40, 60 years. Take what is yours and enjoy it. Live it. Be it. And let that stuff go. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't consider that that path as I first answered that. That's an important distinction for sure. Yeah. All right.
Shall we wrap up?
Wrap it up, man. Yeah. Great conversation today. Good questions.
Yeah. Great questions. And to continue to submit questions, you can do so in a number of different ways. Join us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/group/Order of Man, or follow Mr. Michler on Twitter or Instagram at Ryan Michler. And as always, you know, our ask is support the movement, support the message, not for our benefit, but for the benefit of people that we're sharing it with. You know, if you're listening to this, you know how important this conversation is, especially in the climate of things. I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't know. It's just more and more, man. Like sometimes I have to admit, Ryan, like sometimes I think like, I don't know, because we surround ourselves with high caliber guys. And I think, this is no brainer stuff, right? Like this isn't as critical, right? And then like we were saying earlier, you get a message from someone that's like, this changed my life, or I needed this, or this pushed me through, or you have a conversation with someone and you realize how off the path they are. And you're like, holy crap, this guy has no idea how he should be showing up in life. And then you're like, oh yeah, this message is really needed. And so our ask of you guys is to share what we're doing. And you can do that by following us on YouTube, Instagram, subscribing to the podcast, supporting the Order of Man movement through the store. That's store.orderofman.com. And just spread the message and play your part in uplifting other men to become better. So
that's right. Well, Kipp, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you. Great questions today. Let's keep the conversations rolling. I've got a couple of very cool podcasts coming up. Tim Kennedy was yesterday, just recorded with Eddie Penny. I've got some others that are lined up that I'm not going to jinx, so I'm not going to say them, but I've got some cool podcasts coming up. So make sure you subscribe, leave that rating and review like Kipp talked about. And above all, go out there, guys, take action and become the man you are meant to be.